Hello everyone, today we are going to dive into one of the most chilling and thought-provoking mysteries that continues to haunt historians, researchers, and curious minds all over the world. The strange case of the time travelers who never returned. Now, time travel has always been a subject of fascination in science fiction, but there are stories scattered across history that make us wonder if it might have already happened, and if so, why some of these supposed travelers disappeared forever without a trace, leaving only fragments of evidence behind or strange testimonies from those who encountered them. The idea of humans moving across time raises so many questions. What would they have seen? Who would they have met? And more importantly, why did some of them never come back tonight? We are going to piece together a narrative that combines historical accounts, unexplained phenomena, chilling coincidences. To explore this mystery in depth, imagine for a moment that time is not a straight line, but a vast landscape where travelers can step off one path and onto another. Throughout history, there have been claims from ordinary people to scientists who allegedly stumbled into another era and then vanished. The most frightening detail is that in several of these accounts, there was no return, no closure, just a sudden disappearance, as if they were swallowed by time itself. One of the earliest stories dates back to the 16th century in Spain. Records describe a soldier who appeared in the plaza of Mexico City, disoriented and insisting he had come from Manila in the Philippines, yet his clothing, accent, his words, and the papers he carried suggested otherwise. The authorities were baffled. How could a man have traveled across oceans instantly in a time when months of sailing were required? The soldier vanished from the record as quickly as he appeared, leaving behind confusion and speculation. Some historians dismiss it as myth, but others claim it could have been one of the earliest documented cases of temporal displacement. Centuries later, another eerie story emerged in Versailles, France, where two women in the early 1900s claimed they stumbled through the gardens and suddenly found themselves surrounded by people dressed in 18th century clothing. They even described seeing Marie Antoinette sketching quietly beneath a tree. When they blinked, the vision vanished, and they were back in their own time. Skeptics argue it was hallucination or imagination, yet the women describe details of fashion and customs that they could not have known at that time. What if they had crossed into a fragment of the past, a thin veil in time that briefly allowed passage? Now consider the cases where people did not return. There are whispers of entire groups who vanished as if snatched from the world by some force. In 1950, a man was reportedly struck by a car in New York City, but when police examined him, they found his clothing and coins belonged to the 19th century. He had identification papers for someone born decades earlier. Witnesses swore he looked confused just before the accident and muttered about how strange the city lights were. Some believe he slipped forward in time only to meet an abrupt fate. His body was buried, but his name never appeared in any official registry linking him to the present timeline. These are the cases that chill us because they hint that traveling through time might not be an adventure, but a trap. What if the laws of time are merciless, and once you step off your original path, you can never find your way back? The most terrifying accounts are those tied to experiments during the 20th century. Whispers of secret government projects suggest scientists may have tested methods of bending time and space. Allegedly, entire groups of soldiers or sailors were part of experiments that ended in disaster. Some claimed the men never returned, some fused into walls or vanished before their comrades' eyes. Though evidence is scarce, the rumors refuse to fade. If even a fraction of it is true, it may explain why we hear about time travelers who never make it back. It is as if they walked into a door that locked forever behind them. Consider also the legends of strange visitors who appeared in villages, spoke odd languages, wore clothes not yet invented, and carried objects no one could identify. Many of them were never seen again. The folklore is full of mysterious strangers who left only questions in their wake. Were they time travelers lost in the wrong century and unable to return to their origin? The more we explore these stories, the more we notice a terrifying pattern. Some travelers appear briefly disoriented, out of place, and then vanish as if pulled back. Others are stranded and leave out their days, never able to explain who they are or where they came from. But the darkest accounts are those where the traveler never returns at all. Their stories cut short by disappearance, leaving us with only shadows and speculation. As we piece these tales together, we must ask, what if time is not forgiving? What if to cross its boundaries comes at a cost, and for some the price is never going home? The idea that time could claim those who attempt to cross it unsettles us. because it suggests that the universe itself enforces boundaries and punishes anyone who dares to trespass. Consider, for example, the chilling accounts of pilots and sailors who vanished without explanation in areas such as the Bermuda Triangle. Many researchers have suggested weather or magnetic anomalies, yet scattered testimonies hint at something stranger. Crews reported moments of sudden silence where compasses spun wildly and the sky shimmered with unnatural light. Some survivors claimed they felt as though time had slowed or stretched in those moments, and then abruptly returned to normal. But in cases where no survivors were found, we are left to wonder, did they slip fully into another time, never to return? Stories from World War II. Especially unsettling. One account describes a squadron of planes that vanished mid-flight, in clear weather with no distress calls despite extensive searches. Not a single trace was found, while official records cite navigational errors. Enthusiasts of temporal mysteries suggest the squadron may have entered a fold in time. What if they are still flying somewhere, suspended in an endless loop beyond our reach? This concept of time loops appears again and again in folklore. One village tale from Eastern Europe speaks of a young man who went into the forest to hunt and never returned. Years later, an old man appeared in the same village claiming to be that hunter. Though he insisted only hours had passed for him, the villagers rejected him, for he was decades older, and soon after he disappeared again without explanation. These strange fragments give weight to the idea that time does not flow equally for everyone who crosses it, and some become lost in its currents. When we turn to modern reports, we see cases that grow even more baffling. In 2003, a man in Tokyo was detained by customs officers because his passport appeared to be from a country that did not exist. The passport was official looking stamped with multiple entries and exits from a nation called Tord, yet no such place exists on any map. The man insisted he was a businessman traveling for work, but when placed under observation, he vanished from his hotel room without a trace, leaving behind only his documents. Skeptics call it hoax. Believers call it evidence of a traveler from a parallel timeline who slipped into ours by mistake and was pulled back before he could return home. The unresolved nature of these cases fuels the mystery and keeps us asking whether countless others may have slipped into our reality only to vanish again as easily as they arrived. Some researchers argue that these stories point to thin spots in time, gateways where the walls between past, present, and future are weaker. Sometimes people stumble through accidentally, sometimes they are drawn in, but once inside, there is no guarantee of escape. It is like walking into a vast maze where the paths do not follow the logic we know. Some find their way back, most do not. When we think about the travelers who never returned, we are faced with haunting possibilities. Perhaps they are still alive in another century, wandering unfamiliar streets. Perhaps they exist in parallel worlds invisible to us, or perhaps time itself erased them to preserve balance. Whatever the answer, it leaves us with an eerie sense of fragility. What if ordinary people among us could vanish at any moment, claimed by unseen cracks in reality? In the modern digital age, such stories still emerge, though often buried in forums and obscure reports. Individuals claim to awaken in cities that do not exist, see technologies unfamiliar to our time, or meet people who know them, though they have no memory of such relationships. Some never reappear in our records, leaving behind only second-hand accounts from friends or relatives who insist they vanished without explanation. Skeptics laugh, believers shiver, but the pattern remains constant. They left and never returned. The terror lies not in whether these accounts are true, but in the possibility that they might be, for if even one is genuine, it changes everything. It means that the fabric of time is not fixed, and that any of us could unknowingly cross into another thread of existence without warning. History itself may hold missing chapters. Entire communities have vanished throughout the centuries. Ancient tribes, medieval towns, even explorers who set sail and never arrived. Were they victims of nature, or did some cross unknowingly into the deep rivers of time where return is impossible? As we look at these mysteries, we must accept that the question of time travel is not simply about technology, but survival. To move across time may be possible, but it may also demand a toll from which few return alive or sane. And so we are left with silence, unanswered questions, and chilling legends of those who walked away into time and never came back. And perhaps somewhere out there beyond the veil of our understanding, those lost travelers still wander, trapped forever in the corridors of eternity.